Good morning, Laura.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy St. Martin's Day.
I know, it's come around quickly, hasn't it?
It has.
I remember last year our cheese and wine night and our service at the church, which was so lovely. Feels very different this year.
Yes, yeah, we had the Archdeacon last time. That was one of his
Yeah.
first services that he did. But yes, it's St. Martin's Day, and day that we remember Martin, Bishop of Tours, and we're going to talk a little bit about him. But we were both noticing what was in morning prayer this morning, and every day in the Church of England morning prayer, there's always a psalm. And today's psalm was Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. One of our amazing members, Jessie Skuse, that was her favourite psalm. She died earlier this year. But when she used to come to church, whenever it was that psalm, she would read it. And it is the most beautiful way I have ever heard that psalm read.
Yeah.
She will be forever known.
Absolutely.
So that was what I noticed in morning prayer today.
Yeah. I think that psalm as well just speaks into the heart of what we're going through at the moment, and would just encourage anybody to stop and pause for a moment to read Psalm 23. That, Jesus leading us beside still waters to green pastures, that kind of real refreshing, that for me at the moment, at least in this second lockdown, really spoke to me this morning. The other thing that really spoke to me was the Old Testament reading, which they're going through the book of Daniel at the moment, which I have to say is one of my favourite books of the Bible anyway. I think it's just an amazing story. But it's the part where the king is asking Daniel to interpret a message, and he's had loads of other people that have come in to try and interpret it, so sorcerers and other professionals in the kingdom at that time. And then Daniel comes and he's like, if you are able to do this, if you're able to interpret this message, then I will give you a purple robe, a royal robe, and a gold chain, and I'll rank you really high in the kingdom.
Lovely.
I know.
Good rewards.
I can kind of imagine in that moment, it's like, oh, well, I better please the king then, because those things sound really good. But Daniel actually says, keep your gifts for yourself. I don't need that, but this is what this message means. And then he talks to the king about the way that he's ruling and the kind of unjust ways that he's ruling, and also the other gods that the king is worshipping, and maybe some of like lifestyle things. And then he speaks about the God of Israel and the importance of the God of Israel, and how this is a message from God saying, actually follow me and worship me. And I was just really struck in that moment of Daniel speaking back to power in that moment, and that moment that you need to decide, oh, I've got to say something. And I can't relate to that in terms of talking in front of a king or a queen, but it's kind of made me think of those moments in my day, maybe when I'm speaking to someone or member of family or a friend, whatever, that maybe says something that you're like, oh, I'm not sure whether that's racism, sexism, or just generally a bit off. It's like, how much do I feel like I can actually speak back in that moment and have the courage and the strength to do that, and sometimes to even talk about God as well. I think it sort of brings up those emotions as well.
Yeah, it's a really pertinent message, particularly thinking about St. Martin, because of course you say about Daniel being offered the royal cloak. Well, St. Martin had the cloak, and one of the most famous stories that he's renowned for is it was winter and he came across someone who was desperately in need, and we know that St. Martin had a real heart for the poor, and he used his sword, his military sword, to cut his cloak in two so that he could provide warmth for the person that he'd come across. And his story develops in terms of this idea of integrity and being prepared to challenge power, because the time came where he was called again to fight and promised riches to do that, and he refused, and he said, I cannot fight, I cannot, I'm a follower of Christ, I can no longer fight. And so he was going to be put into prison. But instead, he said, no, don't put me in prison. I will go to the front line completely unarmed, because this is how much I want to be a peacemaker. And those who had authority over him were going to let him do that. But in the meantime, the invasion came, but they came seeking peace. And so the battle never happened. So he was then released completely from any military duty. And it's just fantastic that such was the depth of his faith and his belief that he was not to fight, that there was another way to live, that we would say that was the Spirit interceding. There was no need for him to fear. And in fact, his reputation then went before him for this man of integrity who would always challenge authority, would always try to speak truth to power, so much so that by the time he became a bishop, and incidentally set up a very rudimentary parish system, he obviously was for the parish. Whenever he would go visiting, the emperors and the leaders would refuse to meet him because they knew he was going to ask for pardon, for mercy, for somebody that was in prison, and they knew they wouldn't be able to refuse that. So instead they said they wouldn't meet him, which I think is hilarious. It's like, no, I'd rather not meet you, because I know you're going to ask me to do something that I don't want to do. I'm not going to be able to say no to you, so I just won't meet you in the first place.
I'm so kind of struck by both the story of St. Martin and Daniel as well, of that kind of that integrity and authenticity in their character, which, as you say, I believe is so intertwined with the Spirit and the way that the Spirit moves and God working through them. And it's kind of also making me think of you lent me a book, which is Jodie Picoult, Small Great Things, which is a great book for anyone who hasn't read it and wants a little lockdown read. And I won't sort of give the story, but a part of what is in the book is Martin Luther King's speech of it's not about doing one amazing, great, shiny thing that the public is suddenly all drawn towards and it's all in the light, but actually about doing small, great things every day, and how that really speaks back to power. So I was kind of thinking about when people drop food off at the food bank every week, on whatever day it is, there's not like a group of people clapping and a news camera waiting to be like, this person's incredible. It's almost these kind of small great things every day are kind of quite unglamorous in some ways. They're kind of just quite like, at the beginning of the day, oh, I must remember to get food bank stuff, I must remember to try and drop it off, go and put it in the, it might be raining, you drop it off and you dash over again. You don't know the impact it has or where it goes, but you're just faithfully doing that. And I'm sort of being quite challenged by it's more of these small acts, these small great things that actually at the moment our society really needs. That small conversation with a friend that maybe challenges an idea or whatever it is. But yeah, that it's quite unglamorous. It can be quite hard, quite time consuming sometimes, but actually has a huge impact. Yeah.
And it goes so against the culture that we live in. Where, it is the great big thing that is recognized. And, for a long time, and I think this might be changing a bit, but, celebrity was celebrated. And you're so right. What we actually need, particularly now, is not people that are going to do one brilliant thing and everyone's going to notice and recognize and applaud, but for all of us to participate in this radical idea that we could all do small great things and no one may ever know. Because we're not trying to point to ourselves, we're trying to point to God.
Exactly.
It reminds me of coming back to the book of Daniel, which is Daniel is given these amazing visions of what the end times are going to be like, and God gifts him this vision that says ultimately this is how it's going to be. And I'm showing you, I want you to write it all down in a book. And so Daniel has to write every word in a book. And then God says, now I want you to close the book and live your life. And it's like, the end of the story. Now live your life. And someone said to me the other day, we may not at the moment know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future.
Mm.
And I just think maybe that's for all of us. You know, we know who's holding the future. For all of us, we can live our lives. Perhaps that reminder of generosity and doing those small great things, because we're not pointing to us, but we're pointing to God.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just, you know, random acts of kindness, small great things, however you want to call it, is just being able to kind of litter God's earth with love and kindness and joy. And actually, it can be like, as we've been saying, it can be the simplest of things that makes the impact. And yeah, I'm just really challenged this week. It's not about, well, I necessarily do this, but you do see it on social media. It's not about writing a status about what you've done or putting something on your Insta story, but actually just doing it and having that integrity to do it.
I was listening. I just had to write down the word litter God's earth with love, because coming soon to a sermon near you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, it's been so good to talk today. And today we're also going to celebrate a Eucharist for St. Martin, so that will come out on Facebook and YouTube a bit later on. But even if people don't see it, just to know that for the parish, we're remembering St. Martin is so important. So no weekly chat next week.
No.
I have a week off.
Yeah.
But we'll be back the following week. So lots of love and blessings to everybody. Praying that you will know God today.
Yeah.
But also for all of us, let's think about those small great things that we could do, because that's what God asks us to do. Have a good week.
You too.
And see you soon.
See you soon. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.